Hi there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learned an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello and welcome to the Being Human Hidden Depths podcast. My name is Jill Tiny. I am very excited today to be having a special guest talk to us all the way from sunny Florida, although looking at the image, if you go onto the YouTube channel, you'll see it's a bit cloudy where he is. But Jim Gale, welcome to Collaboration Global.
Well, thank you, Jill. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm excited to share our message. We've got so many neat things going on, and we're changing the world.
Yay! Well, that's why I'm interested in what you have to say, because in our own sweet way, we're all having a go at this, and we're attracting other people that are changing the world. So I'm hoping that people that listen to this podcast are going to be like, oh, I need to talk to this guy. Let's connect you up with some fascinating people. Tell me why I found you fascinating. So let's go back to square one. Where are you, and what's Food Forest? Tell us all about that.
All right. I am in Central Florida, in actually St. Cloud, Florida, and we have built a completely off-grid community. We produce all of our own food and energy and harvest all of our own water on the 51-acre property, which is bordering Cat Lake, which is a private 430-acre lake. So we've got the only dock on this incredible lake, and we are demonstrating the solution to mass extinction and deforestation and cancer and diabetes and heart disease. We're demonstrating the solution to all of the world's biggest problems, and we're inviting people here to inspire and empower them to take our lead and do the same.
That's amazing. There are so many people out there that look at these global problems and go, but what can I do? And it's sometimes it's just starting small and then doing just what you can. And you are being that person that's getting out there going, hey, this is what I've done. Why don't you have a go? So where did this idea, I mean, when did you get the impetus to go, do you know what? It's time to do something. What was the catalyst that got you going?
Yeah, so there was layers and layers and layers of evolution and awarenesses that I have realized in my life. And the first catalyst, I believe, or the first big one that comes to my mind is becoming aware of our power as people, as humans, right? We have infinite power. In fact, there's a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's one of the classics. Well, Napoleon was commissioned to study the minds of the most successful entrepreneurs and manifestors in the world. And after a lifetime of study, Napoleon deducted whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. This is also biblical. And so I took that and I started writing goals based on that knowledge from this incredibly wise and studied man. And I started writing goals, and the results of the visioning were so profound that I started to believe him. And then it just kept going from there. And now I am very aware that we are going to catalyze a shift in awareness. It's already happening. We're not going to, it's happening now. That leads to mass adoption of the most simple and logical thing we could ever do. And that's take the poisons out of our lives and grow our own food and steward our earth again.
Just like that, yeah. We are so on the same page. Even in November, we had Nicolette Richer from Canada talk to us, and her book is Eat Real to Heal. And she was telling us some of the practices that we take for granted that you don't need to do and actually are doing us harm. Simple things that we don't even think about, like using oil to cook with. and how that can be damaging for us, and how much salt we put into our bodies that is damaging for us. And we don't need water to cook vegetables. You know, we don't need to boil it and lose all the nutrients. And it's like, this is making perfect sense, but we're doing everything out of habit because that's what we've been taught and that's what we think is the way to do it, the right way to do it. And actually, it only takes one person to go, yeah, but what about? And you go, oh yeah. It's this, I just love it. And now there are more and more people like you that are they're going off grid and doing it for themselves. But I love the fact that you're not just going, I'm all right, Jack. You're going, actually, this is what I'm doing. This is how it works. Hey, come over here and let me help you do it too. And it will spread bit by bit by bit by bit. It will get out there and it will spread. And we will no longer need to be at the behest of the people that are feeding us at the moment, because we'll be able to feed ourselves. And
Yes.
if you go back a generation, that's what they did. It was dig for victory, wasn't it? During the Second World War, we all turned our gardens over from pretty plants and rose bushes, and we grew food, and we grew it in the healthiest way that we could. And yet we let that go. Isn't it funny? Just in the space of one generation, we let it go.
And it's all by design, right? Henry Kissinger, who was the founder of the World Economic Forum and the fellow who appointed Klaus Schwab, he said 50 years ago, if you want to control people, control food, because food then creates our health. And when you control the food, you can control the health of society, and you can literally create your own longevity scale, right? It's absolutely by design. Nothing that's happening right now in the bigger picture is accidental or just based on ignorance. It is by design that we are living this way as humanity. So that's the problem. And I don't focus on the problem.
No.
We focus on the solution. The solution is so simple. And it's not the traditional, the new traditional farming, the farming that has been taught in our colleges and universities around the world for the last several generations is the most destructive teaching ever, right? Because like in the United States, we have 890 million acres of farmland, and it's all poisoned. It's all monoculture. None of it is done. None of this growing is done the natural way, right? The Garden of Eden way. So all around me right here, I'm sitting in my little Garden of Eden.
Wow.
We have 240 different food producing plants all around me.
Yeah.
And it's perennial style. So I don't have to do anything. Once you design and install a food forest, it will literally produce exponential food forevermore.
We have a lot of that in the UK, not a lot. We have some people doing that in the UK where I'm going to go and buy a field or two or three, and then they just let it do its thing. And before you know it, nature's come back and rearranged it all, and things start growing. And then they have animals that get attracted to it, and before they know it, they can actually sell some of the produce that is being grown 3, 4, 5, 6 years later. And they've got a little mini ecology going on. They've got a farm shop and things that they can sell because the bees have arrived, and they've got some honey they can use, and all sorts of different things. And it's like, what is it? That's the way it used to be, and that's the way we've gotten out of the habit of doing. It's interesting how you talk about Henry Kissinger. I should know more about that man, but I don't. I know of him and of his history. But the word that you used, talking about him, is saying, if you want to control people, this is how you do it. Fortunately, I think because of the pandemic as a big lever in this, is that people no longer talk about the masses. I'm not talking about people in charge, but the masses don't talk about leadership in that way. They don't talk about controlling their staff. They don't talk about controlling the clients and the suppliers. They talk about being servant leaders. Simon Sinek is always going on about leaders eat last. And it's that kind of philosophy now that a lot of business owners are kind of adopting. It's like, we're serving each other. And that's part of Collaboration Global, where you come together as a business owner, you're up to some good, you're doing something for the benefit of the community, or, it's not just about, I need to make money. It's a bigger picture than that. And by coming together, they can support and help each other. So the conversation at Collaboration Global is not, what's in it for me? How do I make money out of this community? What's going on? I need to hit my targets. It's, oh, how can I help you? What can I do? This is what I love doing. What do you love doing? Let's see if we can do something together.
Yes.
And it's that bit by bit by bit, like you ripples on the pond, you can share that with people. And when you've got a culture like that, that we demonstrate and we say every single meeting, it's founded on love.
Yeah.
Founded on love
It is.
and abundance. And then you can start seeing the magic happen. And what you're doing with food is kind of what we're doing with people over here. And when the two combine, it's just magical. I love it.
It's magical. Like we are witnessing the great awakening, right? The word apocalypse means lifting the veil or the great reveal, the ascension of human consciousness. And it's a beautiful time to be alive. I'm aware that there's more suffering right now than any time in history. I'm aware that a lot of people who are stuck in their suffering are not going to make it. But my joyful duty is to help them see even the wickedest of wicked who are in the government and who are in these corporations that are poisoning our world, our minds, right? Governmente means mind control, literally, right? The opposite of mind control is a light mente, a mind that's free of the fear and the scarcity narrative, the divide and conquer narrative that's going out through all of the media, which just happens to be owned and run by the corporations who run the government, right? It's all one thing, right? Yeah, for lack of a better word, I could call it evil, right? Which is the opposite of live. It's live backwards.
You know, I never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And it's happening. It's expanding so fast. I had General Blaine Holt call me a few nights ago. I just learned actually a few minutes ago that BlackRock is now they have to let go of 1,000 people because big institutional money is recognizing that they are investing in poisons. They're investing in unsustainable systems that are harmful to our world.
Yeah.
And now those systems are crumbling, and we are inviting that money to create a new food supply chain.
Mm.
And it's so logical to do it this way
Yeah.
that it literally solves all of the world's biggest problems when we have the institutional investors come in. And by the way, I've met with two people running for US president. I met with Bobby Kennedy and I met with Dr. Shiva, who created email. And they are not aligned with each other at all, but they both loved what I shared with them and they both wanted to participate.
Nice.
Again, I don't trust government to solve our problems, but it's neat that these people who are in those positions with huge platforms are now sharing this message.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I don't need government to help me to do what I'm doing. And I believe at some point it will be a space where they'll be like, well, so what are you doing over there? How do we get involved? And it's like, well, do you want to copy what we're doing? Because actually it's working quite well, you know, and as you grow, more and more people get involved and they see there's a different way. And I think going back to the pandemic, Jim, there was people realized what was important in their lives at that point. And people are now more empathetic and compassionate towards each other.
Yeah.
And yes, I know there's X and people are very judgmental on these social platforms, but not everywhere. There are places where people are really compassionate. And they're the majority. The majority of people realize that we have to start taking radical responsibility for our lives, our communities, and being connected to other good people that are doing something that is going to make a difference in this world. And eventually the government, you kind of have to look at them and go, well, they know not what they do, to be honest. All they're up to, they have been trained and sausage machined to make money and to be in power and to take control. And now we're like, do you know what? With mental health the way it is, it's not working. You were never going to be happy doing this. So why don't you try something else over here? It's much more fun. And you're going to find contentment. You're going to find ease, you're going to de-stress, you won't have so much illness, you won't have to worry about the NHS because most people will be looking after themselves because they'll be eating good food and they'll be taking exercise, and we won't need all of the things that we have been taught to use as our first stop when we're not well. It's like, oh, need a prescription, need to go and get some drugs. Won't need it anymore. So it's just, it's a knock-on effect. It's like dominoes, isn't it? And I think the people that are in charge at the moment, I feel sorry for them because they're not in our world. They're not in the real world. They're in their ivory towers and they can't see what's happening. And ultimately, they're going to fizzle out and be extinct, to be redundant, be impotent to what's going on in the world. And we'll be going, we don't need that law because it's working out down here. We don't need it. You know, that law about anti-racism, well, we don't have racism here because we see each other as equal.
Yeah.
Those kind of things that will take time, will take, you know, an understanding and people going, oh, I don't need to defend myself anymore because it's equal.
Right.
I don't need to judge other people in order to make myself look bigger because there isn't that negative energy around anymore. And I think the pandemic was that beginning of us showing compassion to each other, and we need to access that and share it more and more and more. And I just love what you're doing. I think it's beautiful to reclaim the earth for the benefit of the people and be respectful.
Yes, to be stewards again. You know, awareness is key to change, because without awareness, there's not an awareness of the choice to do something better. So that's what we are all about. We are about creating mass awareness. You know, I've been on 450 to 500 podcasts in 2.5 years. We now have all these amazing people coming together around the simplest thing, right? And I'll just show you around here real quick. Like this 21 months ago, there was nothing here but sand, like a blank canvas of Florida sand. Several people have told me, Jim, you can't grow food in sand in Florida. It just doesn't work. Well, they were wrong.
So
now,
you planted it, or is it just nature claiming it back?
No, so 21 months ago, we started with permaculture design, right? Permaculture is the agricultural design science. The ethics are earth care, people care, and fair share in a voluntary way, not at the point of a government gun, but voluntarism. Service then becomes our primary, in a way, it's our means of creating such an offense, or such a way where we are now so protected, because we didn't ask the government for permission to do any of these things, to build our houses. We are literally going outside of the system, and we are demonstrating service to our community and creating a food supply chain here that everybody benefits from the bees and the lizards to all the people and everybody around here.
So tell me a good soul heart story where you kind of were able to help someone from this project.
So, well, we are helping people in 54 countries and 50 US states. We're inspiring and empowering them to grow food, to show, instead of lawns, right? That's the simplest thing. Is there's 47 million acres of lawn in the United States alone. When we transition 30, 40, 50% of that to this landscape, we literally solve mass extinction, deforestation, and everything else. So it's every day that people are calling us up, and when I do tours as well, I take people on tours through here, and many people start crying because now they see what innately they know to be possible. Like the story of the Garden of Eden being a utopic fantasy, that's a lie. It's the way we should be living.
It's just a lovely feeling. I mean, I remember where I used to live, there was a lovely cafe that I'd enjoy going to. And then you find out the story behind the cafe was that a charity that worked with disadvantaged children and disabled people had an allotment. And in the allotment, all the children and the adults as well would work together to grow things. And in the end, they had a glut of produce that they were growing in their allotment. So they decided there was an empty shop front in the town. They said, can we just use that to kind of sell some of our vegetables? And they're like, sure. Before you know it, people had taught them how to cook the vegetables, and they were volunteering in the shop to, learn a skill, learn how to be shopkeepers, learn how to cook food, learn how to serve people, learn how to do the accounts. And as a town, it was called Mudlarks. It was absolutely beautiful. So there were 3 or 4 other, cafes in town, but you would go to Mudlarks because it was such a lovely atmosphere, and you would have a lovely chat with the people there and see what they were up to. And that's getting back the community spirit that I think we've lost. I used to say to people, what's the name of your neighbor? And one guy said to me, what do you mean? I said, What do you mean? What do I mean? What's your neighbour called? And he went, oh, we've not lived there very long. I said, well, okay. How long have you been there? We've only just moved. We've only been there about 9 months. And I was like, and you still don't know the name of your neighbour? It's like, what's going on? And this is how people have kind of, they seem as acceptable. They see it as normal. And it's like, no, that's not normal. I was in approximately 3 minutes before I found out 4 of my neighbours when I moved here. And we've organised street parties. We've got a WhatsApp group. And it's like, we're part of, now, okay, to be fair, this is a village, so it is different. But I'm a London girl. I wasn't used to that. And it was, we just knocked on people's doors and said hello. And people want to be friends. And until you start trying and taking that responsibility for yourself, you're never going to connect to those around you. Now, you don't have to live in each other's pockets. It doesn't mean that you're knocking on each other's doors every 2 minutes. But you're there in an emergency. You're there when people need you. You look after each other's houses when you go on holiday. It's the way it used to be when I was a kid in London. You knew everybody up the street, and you would pop into each other's houses for a cup of tea. The kids would play on the street because it was a safe place. You know, you don't go in the road because that's where the cars are, but you can stay on the pavement, all that kind of thing. At 6 years of age, I would walk to school, and I had to cross the road to get to school, but that was fine. It took me about, I don't know, it was a 10-minute walk, wasn't long. But at 6 years of age, can you imagine a mother letting their 6-year-old go off now to walk to school?
Right. Nope.
Let's bring that back. Let's bring that safety.
That's it. Absolutely, Jill. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're having all these community dinners and community events and community meditation and yoga and breath work and all of these, especially around food, right? We grow so much food here. And let me rephrase that. I don't actually grow food, and I'm not a farmer.
Right.
I'm a harvester. I can walk outside right now and there's food all over the place that I don't have to manage. It nature manages itself very well, especially when you design it and then you start building these guilds. A guild is a community of plants that support each other. So all of these plants here have been designed to work with each other. And it goes nuts, and then that brings in community. And this is really important right now because we are at a type of war. There's a lot of people fighting and struggling right now, and it's going to take local self-reliant communities to get through this time, right? At any day they're talking about EMPs and all this crazy scary stuff, but when you have these types of systems and the community to come together, then it's not nearly as scary.
Yeah, so it's like it's going hand in hand, isn't it, between the two? And that's when you see a good community, when you see signs up in the local shops. So for here at the moment, heating is so expensive. I'm sure it is the same where you are, and it's flipping cold as well. It's like minus blah, 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 whatever it is. And so lots of the shops are saying, come in for a cup of tea, come in just to warm up. You don't have to buy anything. Just so the shops are keeping their doors shut. So the pubs are the same, you know, come in, we'll give you a free coffee. Just come and warm up, the fire's on. It's like, just lovely, you know. And
that's amazing.
But then you know, if they've got the fire on anyway, why would you not invite more? And it just makes perfect sense. And of course, when things get back to normal, hopefully those will then be customers who will go back and will be grateful to say thank you for helping me when I didn't want to heat up my house because it costs so much money. It was when there's a phrase just before Christmas of people talking about eating or heating. You had to choose. It's just horrific. So let me move on from the depressing stuff. Let me tell me what you could go and pick now and cook for your dinner in your gorgeous forest.
Oh, sounds good. So we're a big fan of the crops that grow and propagate quickly because we recognize that the food supply chain is in big trouble. It's mostly toxic, and the whole supply chain itself, it just is in unsustainable situation. So like, if you can see this one here, this is called longevity spinach. This is a living salad bar. And it's called longevity because it helps you live a long time. So if you want to grow your own longevity spinach in this zone, and permaculture starts with what zone are you in, right? I can't grow this in Minnesota, but I can grow thousands of other types of edible plants in Minnesota, right? So if you want to propagate this, you just take a little sprig of this, you know, like boom, pull that off, you stick that in the dirt somewhere else, And as long as you have decent soil, now you've got a new living salad bar.
Wow, amazing.
Right?
That's beautiful.
It is. And then these are papayas.
Oh, I love
Right?
it.
Yeah. People say money doesn't grow on trees. They don't know what they're freaking talking about. That's money. That's real wealth right there. You know? In fact, one of those papaya has over 100 seeds in it. So
Yeah,
you can count the seeds in the papaya, but you can't count the papayas in the seed. It's infinite.
yeah,
So now we're going to harvest those papaya and we're going to take the seeds out and we're going to give the seeds to people. Or if you want to create an income stream, you can sell the seeds. Or you could even go one step further and you can get some soil and you could propagate those seeds and then you could sell the starts, and the cost of getting those seeds is basically nothing. And then the amount of time that would take to lay those seeds on a tray and start propagating new papaya trees, the return on that time invested is absolutely fantastic.
mm. So it's a magic circular way of being and finding your
Yes.
income. How long does it take to go from seed to tree where you're going to be propagating more produce?
For papaya, it takes about 15 to 18 months to go from seed to papayas,
Wow,
right?
that's
Yeah,
fast.
yeah. Things like sweet potatoes, there's a lot of annuals that you can get a yield within 60 to 90 days. And then there's things like basil, right? This is so
Uh,
beautiful. The bees love it. The smell is amazing. And
mm.
that's a great herb and spice. And that's easy to propagate as well. So you want to start now. Like they say the best time to plant a fruit tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's just incredible. So you teach people how to do this and you teach them the systems that they need for their location. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So we have a group of international designers. They're permaculture certified designers.
Wow.
And people, here's the thing, we have a mission. I have 4 daughters, and we're either going to change the world or we're not. And I'm focused on let's get it done. So that's our primary thing is let's catalyze a shift in awareness that leads to mass adoption. So if anybody wants to grow their own food, we will help them. There's no cost involved, right? We will help by putting out all of this information, videos and stuff. Plus, you can go on YouTube and anybody can learn at no cost how to do everything themselves.
Wow.
If, however, somebody wants to speed up time, that's where our designers come in. We
Right.
have designers that are standing by to help design landscapes to be hyper productive, beautiful food forests.
That's amazing. Because when I was telling you earlier about this person in the UK or other people that have bought a field and tried to do it themselves, they've allowed it to happen organically without any interference from them. And it's taken sort of 7 or 8 years before they've had any produce that of value that they can actually sustain themselves with, was their idea. And which is fine if you've got some money in the bank to kind of seed you over. But this sounds like it's much more doable.
It's faster. Permaculture speeds up time massively, and it speeds up the yield potential and the risk. It mitigates risk because that's what it does. It designs systems. It's like building a house. The first thing that any logical person is going to do is they're going to get an architect to design the house,
Hmm.
and then they're going to follow the design. Well, that's what permaculture is. They're architects for edible landscapes and permaculture landscapes, and it saves a lot of headaches.
Yeah, that makes sense. So tell me, you said earlier about doing things in different states, and what do your politicians think about this? You've had conversations, haven't you, with people? What do they,
Yeah.
how do they view it? Is it like, are you threatening them with what's going on because you might, destroy the industry of agriculture, or are they grateful that you're making these ideas happen?
Yeah. So I sat down with Bobby Kennedy about 2 months ago now, and I shared with him. I said, Bobby, and by the way, government is not the solution. I'm aware of that. So anybody who thinks that I'm silly for doing this, we have a strategy, right? We are inviting the leaders, the billionaires, the politicians, and the corporate people. We're inviting them to do the right thing publicly. And there's a lot of benefits that come from that. So anyway, I sat down with Bobby and I had a wonderful conversation. I shared with him, I said, Bobby, what I'm going to share with you right now will not only win the election, the campaign strategy that I've laid out in front of him, it will not only win the election, but it will create peace on earth. And he went, what? And he thought I was a little nuts. And then 15 minutes later, he said, I'm in. He
Wow.
said, I agree. And here it is. It's not a secret strategy, right? Everything we do is open source.
Yeah.
And it's so simple. When we put, in fact, I had laid out claims that he could make on a campaign stop. The first claim is, I will take all the poisons out of the school land and the school lunches, and we will reverse the trends of childhood diabetes and suffering and illness and suicide and depression and all that. And here's exactly how we'll do it. We'll teach the kids permaculture, and the students will learn how to grow their own food at school. Now, this is not a hypothetical solution to school reform. It's a demonstrable, proven solution. Every school that has done this has had students that were far elevated in health and wellness and test scores and everything else.
Wow.
So this logical use of the students' time and energy growing their own food would change the world radically, right? That's just one campaign stop. So now imagine, and by the way, I talked to Dr. Shiva as well, who created the email, and I said the same thing to him. I said, imagine going into prisons and saying, I am going to reduce crime by more than 50%. My strategy as president is going to reduce crime by 50% over the next 4 years. If a presidential candidate made that claim, the first thing that would happen is the media would go nuts.
Yeah.
They would say that's crazy. You can't even make that claim. It's not even ethical to make a claim like that. But guess what? It's not a hypothetical. It's been done where the inmates grew their own food.
Wow.
The recidivism rate fell by more than 60%. So we just solved the majority of crime, right? Now, let's go into opportunity zones, which here in the United States, opportunity zones are places where people eat poisonous food and they're poor. They're places, they're ghettos, for instance.
Yeah.
Right? Now, let's go into the parks and opportunity zones, which are typically used for drug trafficking and all that. Let's bring the community in and let's design and install food forest systems in the community, nurseries, because every food forest is by its very nature a nursery. So now let's design these nursery living systems in where anybody can go get food anytime they want. You know, in some climates, it'll be 6 months a year, like in Minnesota. But there's so much abundance those 6 months a year that people could literally get rid of their food bill.
And you've been doing this already. You've been, like, when you're talking about these things, the fact you've actually tried them out and experimented with them. And how long ago was that? How long have you been doing this, Jim?
Well, I got real passionate about it back in 2007 when I had my first 2 daughters. I red pilled and I learned permaculture all at the same time.
Wow.
And I went through basically over a decade of scarcity. And here's why. I had sold a mortgage company that did $1.3 billion in revenue. I had a lot of money and I studied every day. I was focused on the problem. And that's what a lot of people are doing now. They're hyper focused on the problem. And that creates scarcity and fear and humiliation and shame and all these very low energy systems in our body. So anyway, I read Bill Mollison's quote, though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions are embarrassingly simple. And I started to bawl. And then I started focusing on the solution. But I actually invested all my life savings into this until 3 years ago. I was dead flat broke. I was in debt. I didn't have income. The government shut down my business because I was in a mall, and they used COVID as the excuse to shut down our businesses. And I stepped into the frequency, the energy of faith and courage. And then something magical happened. And all of a sudden, all these downloads and this information started coming. And I started speaking my mind. I started speaking from my heart. And boom, now things are just fantastic again.
Mm. It's such a different energy, isn't it? When you're focusing on the problem and you're around that stress and that angst and that upset all the time, it doesn't release you, doesn't open you up for the potential of what could come in and what you could. It's that time. There's a quote, isn't there, that if you're at work and if you meditate for an hour a day and then you go to work and you're really stressed, you need to meditate for 2 hours a day.
There you go.
You know, it's that let yourself be on. Michael Singer, didn't he, wrote the book, The Surrender Experiment?
Yeah.
And it's like by the time you sit there and just wait and absorb what's coming to you, and you, as you say, you focus on the solution and not on the problem, then it opens doors left, right, and center. And it just to hear you going through that and having done that, it kind of solidifies that faith and that belief that so many people have, but maybe they haven't seen it yet for themselves. So it's letting them know that it's like just keep on keeping the faith, living your life in abundance and with love, and to support and help people, and have that time when you're just being with you and the universe. And if you're out in nature, and if you're out digging for England kind of thing, and digging for victory, and planting things and bringing it towards you, then you're going to have a lovely life. It reminds me of that joke about the guy that was fishing, and this other guy sort of pulled up in a fancy car and he started fishing with him. And he said, "Oh, do you realize that if you had a boat, you could, use 2 rods, and then you could get more fish, and then you could get, then you could have 2 boats, and then you could have 3 boats, and then you'd be able to have more fish, and then you could have a car like mine, and you'd have a great time." So what would you do with it? When you've got all that money? He said, "I'd just go fishing."
I love that one.
So it's like you
That
don't
is
need to go through all of that. It's a great idea. Yes, build it into a business if it's something you love. But if you're just doing it already, you don't need the stuff that goes around you. This stuff that we're
exactly.
told that we have to keep buying and buying and buying.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
essential.
And everybody could do this. That's the beauty of it. Garden what you've got is one of my friend's channels. It's just take whatever you've got. And if you want to grow, if you want to take, you could take 5-gallon buckets. You could put some spuds in there. And you can put a little LED light that you buy at the local hardware store in a closet, and add a little bit of water, love them a little bit. We're talking less than a minute a day worth of energy. And you can turn the soil in the 5-gallon buckets into food, into potatoes. Like, it's so doable for everybody.
Mother Nature is just so magic. What would you say about in a lot of places that people are, the soil is not good quality?
Yeah.
How do you know? Have you got to start from scratch and put new soil in, or can you regenerate the soil that you've got?
Yeah, so we started with the worst Florida sand, blank canvas, dead soil.
Right.
And we started by getting mulch, right? So we got these big truckloads of mulch brought in here. And you can also get this stuff for free if you want to put, but we wanted to speed up time because I'm aware of what's happening in the world at a very deep level. And so we bought all this mulch and we spread the mulch on the land. As mulch decays over time, it literally turns into biomass or soil. Then we went and got plants like, I'll show you this one. This ground cover here is called perennial peanut.
Okay.
Now, perennial peanut is the earth's living band-aid. It creates these tendrils and these vines, and this right here, this is seashells. Well, this will cover up this is a scar on the earth right here.
Right.
And this will come in and it will cover up this scar, and it will actually heal the soil and fix nitrogen in the soil. And you don't have to mow it. And it's more beautiful. It creates these beautiful yellow flowers. Another one is sunshine mimosa, and that creates these beautiful purple flowers. So now you've got the most incredible place to walk barefoot and connect with the ground again that you don't have to deal with, and it actually builds life into the system.
Are those plants natural to Florida, or do you get them around the world as well?
So everything starts in permaculture with the hardiness zone. So we're in zone 9B.
Right.
And this is really good for quite a few zones, but if you get into really cold temperatures, this would not survive in the colder zones. But there are other perennial landscape crops or ground covers that will thrive.
Yeah.
In fact, one farmer, what was his name again? He's fantastic. he went from monoculture farming and raising cattle on just one crop to now he's got 23 different grasses and flowering plants that the cattle eat in his cattle pasture. And they're the healthiest cattle with the most nutrient dense meat, and he doesn't have to do anything. So these systems actually create so much abundance, and they make our lives so easy.
Yeah.
Where I can literally walk outside and get a basket full of food in 5 minutes anytime I want.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But it's not unbelievable. It's what it should be and what it could be. And isn't it strange? Isn't it weird that we are talking about something that should be natural to everybody anyway?
Yeah.
But we've been educated out of it. We've been educated that you need fertilizer, that you need this to kill the weeds. This is a weed. It's no good for you. Well, actually, it's just something that is in a place that you don't want it to be. It's not actually bad for you. I mean, so many people in the UK now are into foraging and just going off into the forest and finding so many different things that they can eat. And it's so sad that overall, Joe Average or Joe Public doesn't know much about plants and growing things and what nature is capable of. We're ignorant of
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're like this. This is called dollar weed by the poison salesman, right? This is an incredible medicinal and edible plant, right? And it grows all over. And then this here is sweet potatoes. Those little flowers. This is sweet potatoes. Like, look at those beautiful flowers. And this here is also edible. And then right here we've got mint, right? Here's a mint. This is a chocolate mint plant. Right? And that's also medicine.
Yeah.
Boom. So in this tiny little area, we've got society garlic and lemongrass and different citrus all right here.
Beautiful. I just love it. I remember when I was a teacher many moons ago, we did have a little plot outside the school where the children could go and grow things. They absolutely loved it, being able to plant things. And 6 weeks later, you're looking at your tomatoes that have grown and all the rest of it. And it was just so on hand to do it, and hopefully we've planted a few seeds in their mind to what they can do later. But it's just the potential that we're able to feed ourselves and not. I mean, we have organic vegetables delivered to us, but you kind of.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, yeah, but you're opening up my mind that we've got a bit of ground out the back. It's like, why are we having it delivered? It's only anyway. So much stuff. Just not fit for purpose and not fit for us to eat, and it makes us ill. And the older you get and the more illnesses that you get and you realize where they have kind of stemmed from, the more you realize that your ignorance is actually slowly killing you.
Yeah, for sure. And so the thing that I like to share with people is take the poisons out right now. Like if somebody is using one of these companies to come and spray your lawn with any type of poison, call them up today and say, I don't want any more poisons on my yard. Right? That's just so simple. And then also the number one poison, the most destructive poison and tool of the tyrannical is fear. Fear is the ultimate poison. So take the fear out. How? By turning your gaze towards things that serve and bring you joy, right? In other words, turn off the news. The news is meant to control and manipulate.
If nothing else, it just, even if whether you believe it's used for that reason or not, it just brings you down. It's like you don't need to be battered around. Even the adverts in between any television program will be bringing you, depressing you. And it's like you don't need that in your life. It's just not healthy emotionally to be constantly reminded of the state of the world. Where actually 99% of the world is a really great place. You don't have to live in fear.
Yes. Jill, you just said something so profound. We have been conditioned to believe that from the news that humans are destroying the world and humans are the problem. It is a half truth. It's partly true, but humans are also the stewards. We're also the solution to the problem. So when we rise out of the fear and shame and humiliation and divide and conquer and all these racial, all this BS, and just start loving again, the most selfish thing I could ever do is love somebody, because then I get to feel love, right? And this is true about service. the most selfish thing I could ever do is serve a lot of people, because when I do, then amazing things come back.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember as a kid, this will make you laugh. We used to sing a song, I must have been 5 or 6, and it was love is something if you give it away. It's like a magic penny. Hold it tight, you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many they'll fall all over the floor. Because love is something if you give it away, and it's so true. It's just, you give someone a hug, and you're getting just as much hug back. And
Oh, I love that. I got one of my favorite ones is, if you bargain with life for a penny, life will pay no more. Although you'll beg at evening when you count your scanty store, for life is a just employer. It brings you what you've asked. But once you have set your wages, why, you must bear the task. You'll work for a menial hire, only to find dismayed that any price you'd have asked of life, life would have willingly paid.
oh, I like that one. I like that one. Listen, on that note, I mean, there's so much more to explore, but I just feel like people are going to take on this massive message of, we can make a difference in this world. Whether we do it by having a pot that we put potatoes in, or we just, grow something on our windowsill, or we just convert our whole garden, who knows what's going to happen. But if anybody's interested in maybe doing this, maybe they've got a field they can convert, maybe they want their own food forest in their backyard. How do they get in touch with you?
Awesome. Thank you, Jill. Foodforestabundance.com. That's foodforestabundance.com is our primary website. Our designers are standing by to help you wherever you start from. And then I'd like to invite everybody to come visit me here at Galt's Landing in Central Florida. It's galtslanding.farm. galtslanding.farm, and we have Airbnbs. We have all this cool stuff to see and show, and we have a private lake and all this neat stuff. So you're invited to come stay here with us.
That would be amazing. Okay, that's on my list of things to do now. Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciated this conversation. I wish you every success in what you're doing. I think it's amazing. I know 1 or 2 people I need to introduce you to as well, so that you can start sharing with them. It'd be fantastic.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Thank you for yes, thank you for spreading the word, Jill. This is how we change the world.
Indeed. Thanks, Jim. Take care.